When I was in the hospital doing my therapy and, again, wallowing in that syrupy, sticky sauna of self-pity, I was asked a question by a prisoner who was doing rehab in the hospital that set me free from my prison. And that mental prison that we are all in, is not a great place to be in. And we all have the ability to set ourselves free. We all have the ability to focus on what we can do instead of what we can't do. We all have the ability to flip the switch and reframe and see our challenges and our setbacks as opportunities and the next comeback.
Hi, I'm Tia Minzoni, survivor, serial entrepreneur, CEO, and co-owner of luxury private jet company Stella Jets, and the host of the Fight to Fly show. Not every battle has a success story, but every true success story has a battle. And on the Fight to Fly show, I sit down with guests who have fought the most incredible battles and overcome extraordinary challenges to become high achievers, with a goal of sharing the lessons, strategies, and processes they learned along the way so that you can overcome the challenges holding you back and reach that next level high achieving lifestyle. Expect to be entertained, inspired, and motivated to break down the barriers to your success through the lessons and life experiences of our incredible guests every week. Are you ready to give your dreams wings? Get ready for your Fight to Fly. On today's episode of Fight to Fly, we have four-time Olympian, gold medalist, wheelchair basketball and tennis champion, motivational speaker, and author of I'm Possible, a man with an incredible story to tell about resolve and determination, who's going to share his gold nuggets with us, Jeff Griffin. I'm so excited to have you on today's show, Jeff.
Tia, thank you so much for allowing me to be on your shoulders. I always say it's easy to look nice on the shoulders of giants. And so thank you for letting me spend some time with you and your audience. And I'm just so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Oh, we are excited to have you. When I met you a few weeks ago at David Meltzer's studio, and heard your story and how you went from a college athlete to a paraplegic to the high achieving individual you are now, I was just like, we have to have him on the Fight to Flight show. He has a story to tell that I think our listeners can get some great lessons from.
Well, absolutely. I'm excited. That's my passion. That's my mission. That's my purpose. I speak all over the world, and when I come rolling out on stage, I address the elephant in the room about how good looking I am. No, I'm just kidding.
It's good to get that out of the way first.
I did. I'm like, we just had to address it, and really, that's if people are watching, they're like, no, he's looking a little shaggy right now, or haggard or whatnot. But no, I do. I speak all over the world. And I come rolling out on stage, and I do address the elephant in the room. I went from 6'1" to 4'7". And, I was given a life sentence to live life from a wheelchair. And going from 6'1" to 4'7", I see things different. And I've learned, Tia, that different isn't always better, but better is always different. And so if we want to make things better, we're going to have to think different. And that's what I get to do. I get to help people think different. I get to help leaders lead. And what that looks like is, I get to help leaders impact the world, make more money, and master their mindset. The elephant in the room is I'm in a wheelchair, and I come rolling out on stage, and people can see that I'm physically paralyzed. But this is what I've learned over these years, is that most of us, if not all of us, have been paralyzed from the demons of doubt, fear, and complacency. And that keeps us from obtaining our dreams. That keeps us from flying new heights. That keeps us, I always say that, attitude determines altitude. And so those dragons and those demons and of doubt, fear, and complacency keeps us from orchestrating and conducting that song that sings inside our soul, that keeps us from climbing those mountains, that keeps us from going to those heights, that that we can see things and experience things differently. And so I love it. That's what I get to do. I get to go around and just help people with with their mindset.
Yeah. Well, I love your story, and I want to talk about how you got here. I know in your book, I'm Possible, you talk about getting out of this sauna of self-pity. And you and I both know that, we can be our biggest roadblock. And so I'd love to hear more about how you got out of the sauna of self-pity and what led you to this journey of wanting to help others.
Oh, absolutely. Great question. In fact, what's interesting is, I call it entering or exiting the sauna of self pity because my whole identity was wrapped up in my physicality, was wrapped up in how fast I could run, how high I could jump, how quick I could run my routes, and I can catch that football, because as a little kid, that's what I dreamt of doing and being was to play on the big stage. And I grew up in northern Utah and I wanted to go play at BYU, which was south of us, which is ironic because they breed them to hate them up north. But that's what I wanted to do. I was a receiver. They were a passing school and I wanted to go play for them. And so my whole life was up until that point was chasing down that dream. And I got to taste the sweetness of success and played two down. I got to experience what it would be like to be on that field, not just to be on the team and not just to be in the stadium and on the sideline, but to actually be on the field and play this game that I just desperately loved. And so when I was lying on my back next to this unpainted barn, I had just fallen 40 feet. And I'm like, okay, now what? My whole identity had fallen with me. And so I've learned over these years that when we experience major setbacks and difficult challenges, that is the most difficult time period in our lives. There's some people who break a leg and they're out for 6 weeks, but that moment is so difficult for them because it completely changes their world. And if somebody, loses their job or they come into this financial crisis or whatever it might be, we're all going to experience these difficult challenges and major setbacks in our lives. And so the problem isn't the problem, Tia. That's what I've learned. The problem isn't the problem. And the way I figured that out was I had to exit that sauna of self-pity because I entered that sauna because my whole identity was wrapped up in my physicality and that was taken away from me. And I just went into a tailspin. I went into the tailspin. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to live life. I didn't know how to move forward. And so I entered that sauna of self-pity and I thought that the problem was the problem.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good point because a lot of people, they may not have a big back-breaking moment, if you will, but we get into those spirals and that self-pity sauna over things that feel almost just as heavy, right? You lost your job or you lost a loved one or diagnosed with cancer. And so it's really easy to get into that spiral. It's a lot harder to get out of it. So I'm looking forward to learning some things from you today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to address too, I want to make sure that your listeners and your watchers, those who are watching, they don't feel like I am undermining their pain or their challenges or their problems because I've learned that all pain hurts, no matter the size.
Yeah.
And I've also learned too that every problem under the sun has a solution or it has none. If there be one, hurry and find it. If there be none, never mind it. And so what I want to do is what I want to hope to do in this short amount of time is to expand our thinking, to expand how we look at things, flip the switch and reframe things so that we can exit that self-pity, right? That sauna of self-pity. And so again, I don't want to undermine or diminish anyone else's pain because all pain hurts, no matter the size. Yeah. But I have learned that in order for us to look at things different and to see things the way they are, to look at our challenges as opportunities, to look at our crap as a potential crop, to take our mess and turn it into our message, right? How do we flip the switch and reframe things? How do we exit that sauna of self-pity? And what's interesting is the way I exited that sauna happened to be a question that was asked to. When I was in the hospital doing my therapy and, again, wallowing in that syrupy, sticky sauna of self-pity, I was asked a question by a prisoner who was doing rehab in the hospital that set me free from my prison. And that mental prison that we are all in, is not a great place to be in. And we all have the ability to set ourselves free. We all have the ability to focus on what we can do instead of what we can't do. We all have the ability to flip the switch and reframe and see our challenges and our setbacks as opportunities and the next comeback. But we have to get out of our way. And for me, that prisoner asked a question that changed my life forever, that set me free from my prison. Do you want to know what the question is?
Of course. I'm on the edge of my seat.
All right. If you want to know what the answer is, or if you want to know what the question is, go
buy the book.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. I will tell you what that question was. So they stopped feeding me in the hospital in bed. They fed me, but they stopped feeding me in bed. And so if I wanted to go eat, I had to get out of bed. And it took me 30 minutes just to get out of bed with the aid of 2 nurses. Everything I did with ease, I had to struggle at. And it was just discouraging for somebody who had gotten to that point where, I was able to, experience life at a different level, bigger, faster, and stronger. And now I'm like, I can't even turn over. I have to have a nurse turn me over. It takes me an hour to put my pants on in the morning. It takes me a half an hour to get out of bed. I just struggled at everything. And so here I am having one of my pity parties. I'm in my wheelchair. I'm rolling down the sterile halls of the hospital, just feeling sorry for myself. A tear appears in my eye, and I get to the cafeteria. And you know how you're in pain? You just want to be left alone.
Mhm.
That is the worst thing to happen.
Yeah.
But we do it. We just want to get away from the pain. We just want to get away from everyone else. We want to be on our own. We want to be by ourselves. And that is just the worst thing that we can do at the moment. But that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to be alone. I just did not want to even exist, at that moment. So I grab my food. I'm taking it and I go to the corner of the cafeteria because I just want to be left. And I put my tray down. I'm flavoring my food with my tears. And I'm just, having the biggest pity party of the year at that moment. And all of a sudden, this tray plops in front of me, and I look up at that person. I'm about to tell him to go take a hike with some words I'm not going to share with you on today's episode. And I looked at him, and he looked at me. And before I could tell him to go take a hike, he asked the question that changed my life forever. Now, this prisoner was a prisoner at the point in the mountain here in Utah, and he was lifting weights in prison, and he had an aneurysm in his brain, which caused the right side of his body to be paralyzed, which affected his speech. And as he looked at me and I looked at him, he asked the question that changed my life forever. And the question that he asked me was, "Right, Ryan, dude." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Right, Ryan, dude." And I realized in his slurred speech, the question that he was asking me was, "Why you crying, dude?" And immediately I flipped a switch. I started to look around me and started to recognize that there were other people who had it worse than me. There was a guy down the table who was paralyzed from the neck down, and he had a halo screwed to his skull, and he couldn't even feed himself. He had to sit there and just be completely dependent on somebody else. And right next to him was a guy who had been paralyzed from the neck down, but he had some movement in his arm, and so they taped a fork to his thumb and finger. And he's attempting to feed himself, and he gets the fork to his mouth, and all the morsels had fallen off. He's just struggling just to feed himself. And I have the ability to eat. I have the ability to transfer. I have the ability to push. I have the ability to hug. I have the ability to feel other people hugging me as well. And instantly in that moment, when that prisoner asked me, "Why are you crying, dude?" I realized, why am I crying? Why am I crying? And instantly I flipped the switch and I reframed the way I looked at things. And I started to focus on what I could do instead of what I couldn't do. I started focusing on what I can do instead of what I can't do. And that right there just changed the trajectory in my life. And I haven't looked back. I haven't gone back to that sauna. I've had some low moments. I've had some, bad days, but I have never had those dark, depressing, deep, feeling days of feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah.
And so again, I would invite all your listeners right now to evaluate how they look at life, and are they able to flip the switch and reframe the way they look at things, and the way they look at their challenges and their setbacks, because every single one of us has that ability to flip the switch and reframe. And sometimes it just requires somebody to slap us in the face with a question that just kind of just brings us back to reality. Like, oh yeah, why am I crying?
Yeah. What a great story and a great blessing that guy probably had no idea he was giving you, to just get out of your own way and figure out the cans and focus on those instead of the can'ts. And the old saying, where our focus goes, that's where things grow. So such a blessing that your focus was able to move. And I'm sure that the rest of your life has been that way ever since, because you cannot become a high achiever like you are without having incredible focus. And like you said, there's always going to be down days. I think a lot of times people watch these podcasts and motivational and inspirational speakers, and they think you never have a bad day. And so it's really important to say, hey, I still have bad days. I still have days where I get a little discouraged, but then I go back to my center. I go back to my focus. And for me, I write down when I'm feeling like I can't do something. I I write down everything that's stopping me from doing that. And then I go and set it on fire and I do it anyway. And so, I think for a story like yours, of just incredible perseverance and how focus can take you anywhere you want to go. I think naturally the next question would be, how do you decide what to focus on? Obviously in that moment, it was pretty clear, but as you've gotten into doing all these amazing things, the Olympics and, not just that, but writing books and speaking and helping so many others, how do you decide what you're going to focus on next and what your goals are when you get to a level where you're at?
That's a great question. That is a great question because I always say that. How many of you guys know what to do, but you're not doing what you know?
That's
And
me
there's
and
that.
working out.
That's you and working out. You're like,
Yeah.
I know I need to work out, but why don't I work out?
Right.
Uh, Absolutely, again, I believe there are 3D that are the foundation of every challenge and every setback, right? And these three Ds sit on a footing that is, I call it the P squared mindset. It is the possibility principle. It is what allows us to really fuel us forward and just to take off and to launch. And that possibility principle is just amazing. It really is. It's the footings that sits, that allows those foundational gold nuggets, those 3Ds to really help us out. And those 3Ds is desire, dream, and do. And so what's interesting here, again, the possibility principle is, okay, I have the ability. I know I have the ability. I know I can. And that's the biggest constraint that I get to go around and deal with is most organizations, most leaders, most people, they struggle with this belief that they can change, that they can double their income, that they can double their revenue, that they can triple or quadruple or even 10 times their sales or whatever it is that they want. But your question is, well, how do we know what we want? How do we know what to focus on? And the first thing is okay, well, most of us aren't going to really focus on what we want until we really believe that we can do it, that we really have the ability. And so every minute we doubt it's possible, we give up 60 seconds in finding the solution. And so again, it's going back to, okay, am I going to focus on the problem and the challenge, or am I going to focus on the solution? Do I really believe that I can do this? Because this word I can't, as you mentioned, this word I can't is poisonous, it's limiting, it's debilitating, and it cripples us. And as soon as we tell ourselves that we can't come up with a solution, that we can't do this, we can't do that, our mind immediately accepts that and shuts down all the solutions that would be available to us. And so first of all, that we got to understand what the footing is. And the footing is the possibility principle. It's the P squared mindset. It's that mindset that allows us to take our dreams and match it up with our desires. Because how many times have you had conflicting desires? I had a buddy of mine, you just mentioned about speaking of, losing some weight. I have a buddy of mine, he's like, Griff, I really want to lose some weight. I really think I can lose some weight if I hang out with you. I'm like, let's do it. Let's do this. He's like, no, really, I really want to lose some weight. And he would take a drink from his big gulp and continue on saying, yes, I really want to lose weight. And then he'd take a bite from his Twinkie. He's like, really, Griff, I have a desire to lose weight. And so the question I always ask people is, does my buddy really have a desire to lose weight? And some people are like, some people will shake their head. No, he doesn't have a desire to lose weight. Others are like, will nod their head. Yeah, he does have a desire to lose weight. Others are like confused, like, I don't know. I'm so confused here. Or like the one gentleman that I was sharing this story with a group of executives, I didn't even know he had the big gulp underneath the table, but he reaches down. He felt so guilty. He brings it up on the table. He's like, I'm just having a bad day. And I'm like, that's okay. But going back to that question, does my buddy have a desire to lose weight? And I really do believe that he has a desire to lose weight. But what does he have a greater desire to do?
Enjoy food.
Absolutely. Drink big gulps and eat Twinkies.
Yeah.
And so here's this conflicting desire. I don't know if you've ever experienced that before, that tug of war. And so the possibility principle, or the P squared mindset. And by the way, you can develop this. A lot of people think that, I wasn't born with it. Tia was, I wasn't. Joe was, I wasn't. And whatever it is, right? Sometimes we give up our power and saying, well, that person was born with it or whatever it was. But no, we can develop a desire that matches up with our dreams. And so that P squared mindset will allow us to match up our desires to what we want. And again, going back to what do we focus on? And I'm going to come back to that in a second, but I also want to share with you the other 4 benefits that come from developing this P squared mindset, this possibility principle. By the way, if anybody wants this principle, I'll give it to you for free. If you'll just reach out to me and my team by sending an email. contact. If you put in the subject line the word possible, and send it to contact@griffinmotivation.com, we'll send you this possibility principle. And so again, that is in the subject line, write the word possible and email us at contact@griffinmotivation.com, and we'll send you this possibility principle, which, companies pay me thousands of dollars to come share this. It took me years to learn. Hopefully it will only take you minutes, if not seconds. And so again, the first thing is it helps you take your dream and match it up with your desire. And the second thing, the possibility principle or the P squared mindset helps us understand is what success is. And a lot of times, we can learn what something is by what it isn't. And what's interesting is I always ask people, what's the opposite of success? And guess what the answer is typically? Failure. Like the opposite of success is failure. And Tia, I've never met anyone who is a high level achiever or high level leader that has not failed their way to success.
Absolutely.
Failure is part of success. It's not the opposite of success, but we've taught ourselves, we taught our kids, and we've been educated that failure is the opposite of success. And so if I fail, then I'm not successful. So I'm going to tiptoe through life. I'm going to kind of barely move in life and not experience life in HD and in color. And so we've got to understand that the opposite of success is complacency. The opposite of success is to not try, to quit, to give up. And so we have to give ourselves permission to fail. And so the P square mindset gives us permission to fail, because failures at first are triumphs at last, as long as we just don't quit.
Absolutely.
And so success, to me, success is a 3-part series. And that is one, it's an acronym called KFC. One time I was getting this ready one day, and my daughter came into my office and she's like, "Dad, why do you have KFC on your desk?" And I'm like looking around looking for chicken, that finger licking good chicken. And I'm like, "I don't see any chicken here." And she's like, no, not that KFC, this KFC. And it's an acronym for the 3-part series of success, what success really is. And to me, success is you've got to know what you want. You've got to finish what you start, and you've got to celebrate the process. And so going back to your question, Tia, is what should we put our focus into? And that's the first step to success, is to know what we want. Most of us don't know what we want, but the majority of us know what we don't want. And so going back to what you said, where our focus goes is what grows. I like to say where our focus goes, our energy flows. And so if we continue to focus on what we don't want, we're going to continue to get it. But unfortunately, most of us have that powerful that powerful feeling. We've had that experience where, that emotional experience with negative things. And so our subconscious holds on to that. Like, I don't want to be out of shape. I don't want to be fat. I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be lonely. I don't want to be, destitute. I don't want to be bankrupt, or what, what I'm talking about? Those are very emotional feelings and experiences and thoughts that we have. And so I want everyone to understand that a desire is a thought mixed with emotion. It's like I have a desire or a hankering for Chick-fil-A right now. and you got me going on food, Tia. And so again, a desire is just a thought mixed with emotion. And dreams are crystallized desires. And so going back to this, where do we put our focus? Well, we've got to know what we want. And most of us don't know what we want. But fortunately, Simon Sinek always tells us you got to know your why. Tony Robbins like, you got to know your why. Dean Graziosi, all the gurus out there like, you got to know your why. You got to know what you want, but they don't teach you how to do that.
Right.
And over these years, we have developed a tool and a technique, which I call dream weaving, that allows somebody to really know what they want on a subconscious level. Now my buddy and Dr. Antoine Eid has taken even another level, and he has gone to the neuroscience. He has gone to the DNA level, to where you can find out what your essence, what your DNA, really leans toward. And so, this dream weaving, it can, as little as 10 minutes, you can figure out what you want. But most times, the first time that we do this, we pull out that subconscious desire of what you really want. It takes about 60 minutes to 90 minutes at a time to really pull that out and discover what it is that you truly want. Because once somebody gets connected to what they really want and what they truly desire, they're not being dragged to the destination. They are being pulled. They are being drawn to.
Yeah.
And so dream weaving really helps you out with that first step of success, which is to know what you want.
That's awesome. So many people, they hear that, like, focus on your why. You need to know what your why is. And they're like, Tia, how do I figure out what my why is? So I love that you've come up with a process for that. And I hope all of our listeners do that, because if you don't have direction, it's like getting in a car and just driving. If you don't have directions, you don't know where you're going, you're just going to end up right back where you started, after usually driving in some very frustrating circles because you're lost. So I love that you've come up with a system to help people figure out what their why is, so that they can focus on it and grow. And sometimes that first step can be, the most crippling, that stops people from going toward their dreams. So, I just hope all of our listeners will reach out to you. And I have one more question for you before I let you go.
Yes.
I know you have a book, I'm Possible.
Yes.
So we're going to tell everybody where to find that and where to find you on social media, because you have some amazing content. But I would like to know what other 3 books you are reading or would recommend right now.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, other than what you mentioned, I'm Possible, Desire, Dream, Do by the author, Jeff Griffin. I have
The
another
one and
book.
only.
It's the second one. It's called Endless Possibilities, the 90-day recipe for world record results.
Nice.
That's the tool that helps you, develop that P squared mindset. That's the tool that really helps you with the daily dime, as I call it. You got to do the daily dime all the time. And I'm working on another book called You Are the Solution to Impossible. But the top 3 books that I would recommend people who are listening, my go-to is The Richest Man in Babylon to help you with your finances. It's a simple read. But before The Richest Man in Babylon, I would recommend How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
It's a good one.
Don't know if you've read it.
Yeah.
It's a must read. It is a must read. And he just goes into how to really interact with people. And, it's an amazing read. And then, of course, the other one would be Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. After I got done writing my book, I'm Possible, I had a chance to read, and I came across and stumbled across Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I read that book. I'm like, holy crap, people are going to think I plagiarized his work. Because it was like
channeling the energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And a bonus one, Tia, and that would be Solve for Happy by Mo Gadot.
Yes,
And
I've not read that one yet. I'll have to order it.
That one is amazing. He worked for the Google moonshot department. They come together and they're trying to come up with some things that are going to happen 10 years from now. And so he was a part of that. And he just had this formula for happiness. And it was tested when his son died on the operating table.
Wow.
And so then he goes into what this formula is, what this formula helped him, overcome that heartache from losing his son. And then he goes into it and describes his formula for happiness. And so Solve for Happy, beautiful book. Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie, and then of course The Richest Man in Babylon. How do you deal with your money? It's so simple and so basic. And then of course I'm Possible, Desire, Dream, Drew.
Love it. Thanks for sharing that with us. Okay, so tell everyone how to find you.
So if you go to griffinmotivation.com, it's like Griffin. It's like the Griffin, half eagle, half lion, the mythical beast that I try to convince my wife. She tells me all the time, she's like, Griff, you're neither a beast nor mythical. I'm like, okay. But if you go to griffinmotivation.com and you go to the shop section, if you get 2 books, we'll get rid of the shipping cost. And so 2 books, shipping cost. And for your listeners, Tia, if they put the coupon code LOVE into there, we'll knock off 50% on your purchase. And so really what you're getting is a buy one, get one free, no shipping.
Right.
You gotta have these 2 books there to do that. And you can get it on Amazon as well. But the only edition is the first edition, and it's like $50 or $60 now because that one's not in print. And so there is an Audible version. If you want to go on Audible and get it, you can do that as well. But the easiest way, quickest, is just to go to griffinmotivation.com.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for joining us. Loved having you. And I'm sure you and I will be talking again very soon.
Absolutely. Tia, again, this has been a short hour. I know it's not been an hour, but it's been a short half an hour. And I appreciate you allowing me to come in here and shining a little light. My desire is that those who I come across realize that I lifted their spirits, lightened their loads, and loved them. And so thank
Love
you,
it.
Tia, for this opportunity.
Yes. Anything we can do to expand your reach, we are here for it. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Fight to Fly. And don't forget to subscribe for even more motivational content and lessons from high achievers. We love to hear your feedback, so be sure to comment and rank us below and tell us what you got out of today's show, be it a laugh or a lesson. And catch us next week on the Fight to Fly show.